Well, tonight is sort of like our Halloween special. It's very close to Halloween, 2 more days. And we also, too, you'll see the Demon Warrior tonight and Wolfman Roberts. But that's later on. Our guest tonight is Heather Colburn. And Heather, she has a very interesting story. And I became part of it. And if you like, I remember as a little boy going camping, and there you have that little campfire going, and everybody around the camp would tell scary stories. Some of them were fictional, some of them were true. The story tonight you're going to hear is very much true. In fact, this case was so interesting that Ghost Adventures actually wanted to investigate and find out what's going on. And what you have here is not only a haunted house, but you have a haunted ambulance. And I'm going to introduce you to Heather and let her tell the story. Heather, go ahead and tell that story. What happened?
So it started when my autistic nonverbal son began talking to a little boy named Caleb. And it was very interesting. I thought it was imagination play until things got weird. It got so weird that I wasn't the only one noticing, thankfully. You start seeing things and hearing things. And when it's just you and your son can't really speak to others, you start to fall into yourself. You feel like people think you're going to be crazy, so you don't really talk about it. But eventually, picture frames would fall off walls. You'd walk into a room and a table would fall over, or not a table, a chair. And it got to the point where we decided that the house had to be the issue. So the family decided we didn't want to live there. We moved, and whatever it was followed us. And then, as we're here, we had issues with my Uncle Larry. He actually would be poked at, like something would like just come up and poke him, and he would not be able to sleep in the living room or my room or anywhere when he was visiting because he didn't feel safe. Something would turn the lights off when you're in the shower. It was unpleasant. The most violent thing that happened with Caleb is it grabbed my older son's leg and pulled him out of bed. I'm not sure if anything else other than that had happened, but that's the only thing that I personally saw. It just grabbed his left leg and yanked him out of bed. And I was sitting on the bed when I saw it happen. And then it wasn't until Alistair started trying to trap Caleb into closets that I got my dad to agree to let someone come to the house and try and help us. And that's how I met Paul in Halo Investigation. And they found way more than just Caleb. They found the boy that my father watched get shot and killed. My dad actually went to the trial and helped put the men away that shot him. He was very freaked out by that because Mr. Roberts' wife saw him and kind of knew who he was and how he died, and just looked at my dad and goes, well, he's here, thank you. He's here to protect you. And that absolutely blew my dad out of the water. The ambulance, we didn't know there were a lot of issues with until after the crew found things and heard voices inside of it. It was a prisoner transport. So it would take prisoners from the prison to the hospital. And if they lived, they got treatment. So by the time you get treatment when you're incarcerated, it's usually too late. So whoever was stuck in that was unhappy. But thankfully, Paul was able to get rid of Caleb. And we've had a few things follow my son since then, but nothing like Caleb.
And also, too, Heather, the ambulance. Because if I remember right, we got some EVPs out of the ambulance, didn't we?
Several.
Yeah. And the ambulance, of course, people die in ambulance. So she had this parked right in front of her house. Yeah.
Yeah, the goal on that was each side was about 4 inches of steel. And because of the neighborhood we live in, thought if any bullets came, that would stop you from hitting the windows.
Zandine, were you at the investigation at Heather's house?
I was, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. What do you remember about that investigation?
I remember we got some good EVPs.
Yeah. And what do you think about the ambulance that was in front of her house?
I don't remember about that part.
Oh, yeah, there was this ambulance. And of course, an ambulance will take injured people to the hospital. Sometimes those injured people will die inside of that ambulance. So that ambulance was very haunted. Do you think that the ambulance had anything to do with the haunting at her house?
Well, based on the new research and the old research we've had, just as much energy from living people in trauma as from the dead people. So I would have to say yes.
Yeah.
Double.
You agree with that, Heather?
It's possible, but the ambulance came after Caleb.
Okay. Came after, so it was okay. And now, have you had paranormal experiences way before that?
Yes. That. There was like a weird blob. I don't even know how to describe it. It came and hung out in my room, and when it went through the wall, it stained it and took 4 coats of paint to almost cover it. And then when we sold the house, it was still there.
It was a blob?
Like Delilah, that wall we visited, what was it, in Ione, the hotel where they couldn't get rid of the spot where the ghost was.
Oh yeah, that was oh gosh, what was the name of that?
That wasn't the
Black Rose. The Black Rose.
Okay, Black Rose.
Yeah, she was a prostitute and she was killed in that room.
Yeah.
And then a Black Rose would appear at the wall, and when they painted over it or they washed it off, it came back again. Yeah. And also, oh, go ahead, Zandy.
No. Go ahead. No, I was listening to what you're saying. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, and also too, Heather became a paranormal investigator with Halo Paranormal Investigations after we investigated her home, and we were on a case. And I sent Heather home. Heather arrived at the place, and I sent her home because I thought she was in danger. I thought I was in danger. There was this. It was a demonic case, and the guy said that demons were coming out of his wall. So he took this big flashlight that like what police have, and he was banging the light against the wall over and over and over again. He was doing it so much that he was sweating profusely. It was just, he was dripping sweat because he was just banging that flashlight and hitting that light on the wall. And then he would look at me and he goes, "Do you see the demon coming out?" And kept on doing it and doing it. And I kept on thinking in my head, that flashlight, he's going to be banging it on my head. I need to get the hell out of here. So as I was leaving, I saw Heather coming. I said, "Heather, go home. This is not a good place. Something bad's going to happen here." That guy was totally nuts. And
I feel so bad for the woman that was with him.
What's that?
I feel so bad for the woman we left there with him because she was convinced that like you can help her, but like that you were just leaving for no reason, and she was just so confused as to why we couldn't see what he was seeing.
Oh yeah, she was like in danger. I mean, it's like, but that was her roommate, so she couldn't just throw him out right there. But that guy was just completely nutso, and he was talking about when he was pushing that flashlight, he was talking about murder and stuff like that. So that guy was a nut.
Well, he should have burned some fish liver, some fish liver, like Tobit did, or like Baruch. Some of the, because the most powerful demons, whether it be Shamden, I mean, if you're rabbinic, and if you're Mesopotamian or Iraqi and Iranian, Shamden, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, Sharath, but really, like, I don't know if anybody was there that really knew anything about demonology or the source to help him, because most people come in there, with water and crosses and stuff. I mean, but you got to call that demon, know a source, or sick another demon on him if that's what you believe. If he believes in demons, extra human, you could have possibly helped the guy. Is he still around, or is he? What became of him, and what became of the wife?
He's incarcerated. He's incarcerated. Yeah, he's incarcerated.
Demons in there too.
Yeah, he actually.
I guess he actually exercising his demons for real.
He actually hit a guy with a baseball bat.
Yeah, see,
that flashlight. I'm telling you, that flashlight would have came across my head.
Probably would have. I mean, he wasn't rationalizing. That's a red flag. I mean, when I can't reason,
there was no way you can talk reason to him. There was no way, So and I'm not going to put my investigators in danger over some bullshit, So yeah.
What was this wall made of?
Oh, it was stucco. It was just stucco.
So was it like flying apart as he was hitting it with a metal flashlight, or what?
He wasn't actually hitting the wall. What he was doing was where's my flashlight? Let me show. I got a flashlight over here. Oh, okay. So he was just taking the flashlight, right? But it was the light hitting the wall. And he was thinking he was opening a portal. And in the portal, he was telling me there's a portal there and the demon's coming out of the wall. And he was saying that the demon would possess him.
And so the magic flashlight was keeping the demon back or something?
I didn't stick around to find out. No.
Oh, was it a holy flashlight? Did he get that one from the Vatican or something?
No, it was one of those police flashlights. It was that long.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about. I mean, they're a weapon. That's why when you kept saying hitting the wall, I thought, what kind of wall is this? And why isn't there had to be holes in it from hitting it?
I mean, like Zandine, if you were there, I don't think you were there at that one, but if you were there, yeah, I would have told you to get out of there. I mean, there's no way of helping that guy because he was a nut.
Yeah, now you call it. You always call it right. You give me that look, or you say like, and you're like, Zandine, why are you? I'm like, it's time to go.
Oh yeah, there was no way I was going to get a flashlight across my head, So
I hear you, Paul, man. That's but that's experience though. You've done enough of these to like, as soon as you see the earmarkings of the possibilities, you don't even wait for it. You just let's go. That's good. I mean, I love that.
Oh well, just like our case down in Pleasanton, that one nut that we went over to his house, and you remember that guy? I mean, he was talking all kinds of stupid stuff, and I was saying we probably need to get out of here. You remember that one in Pleasanton?
Nah,
no, you don't remember that one?
Oh, Pleasanton. Okay. Huh? You know what? Actually, no, that. We done quite a few where the guy's been kind of the least one was like, I mean, the San Luis Obispo or whatever that town was. San Luis Obispo. But
Heather, do you consider yourself a psychic?
I don't really have the ability to communicate, but I can sure make him angry and have him pop out. I'm not sure if that's psychic ability.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Yeah.
I think it is.
Psychic.
Yeah.
Psychic.
Psychic antagonist.
Ooh, I like that. Psychic antagonist.
Yeah. Now, when Ghost Adventures was interested in investigating your house, now why was the reason that they didn't come?
My dad kind of freaked out because he really didn't. He thought he was placating me by allowing it to happen in his house because no matter what, there's always something that follows my son or me. and he just did it to get me to shut up. He thought, okay, it'll help the kids sleep. Heather will feel better. Everything will be fine. But literally, when you left, the house was calm. There was no issues with falling objects. There were no weird dreams. No one waking up feeling like they're being watched. You can go take a shower and not have any problems. And then he really freaked out when, again, your wife looked right at him and said, the little black guy that, he's right there. He's making sure you're safe. He loves you. That freaked him out. The whole thing freaked him out so much that he couldn't do it.
Now, did I bless your house?
Yes, you blessed our house. We should have had you bless the ambulance because the ambulance lit up like 4th of July.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Got rid of the ambulance.
So this came after Caleb, huh? Okay.
What's that, Zandy? I didn't hear you.
You said the ambulance there after Caleb.
Yeah, after Caleb left, everything was fine. Sorry, I don't know if you guys can hear me. It might be my phone's on this thing a little weird. After Caleb, everything was fine inside the house, but the ambulance just lit up. Like you could actually see shadow people inside the ambulance.
Oh, that's right. There was shadow people through there, and a couple of the investigators actually saw shadow people in the ambulance.
And that didn't start until you guys were there. So we had no idea there was anything paranormal about the ambulance until after you guys came. The house was clean, so that was nice.
You know something, that would have been a great episode if Ghost Adventures had did it. That would have been a good one.
Password, Heather. How long did the activity of the ambulance last after?
I got rid of it this year. So from when we had it, you guys came out in 2019. So
wow,
about 5 years.
Wow.
And where is it now?
I gave it to a friend's boyfriend who was going to start a plumbing business, and he was going to use it, for plumbing. And then it freaked him out, and he got rid of it. So I'm not sure where it is now.
Oh.
What kind of vehicle was it?
It was like a van with I want to say it was a Ford. I can send you a video of it later. And cool. The cutout and the ambulance frame on it.
Okay, so it was a Ford van with the ambulance back on it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Heather, weren't you on the all-night UFO hunts at times?
I went to 2, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, man, that's yeah. So I think like you didn't really talk about that activity there, but I bet you it's related because for you I guess you're having all of it, right?
On some level, I think most alien activity is demons trying to trick people into believing that they're aliens so they can get more involved in you and in your life and try and trick you that way. I do believe there is intelligent life out there, but
right.
Why talk to us? We are some of the most violent individuals on this planet, so they're not going to come say hi. I just don't see it.
On the other hand, as modern humans, we have a fascination with the primitive. There are undocumented tribes or tribes that have had no contact with the modern world, still coming out of the Amazon, and there are people that make it a point. They're their mission in life to go down there and study and research and bring these people out of that. There's tribes in India, there's islands there that are forbidden for people to go to, yet people break the law and risk their own lives and end up getting killed and land on those islands. So the idea of whether it be a mission, like a missionary type thing, or just an adventurer, explorer, that type of thing, I think it may exist in not just us, not just humans. There could be other civilizations that get off on the same thing.
Well, that I agree with you on that. But after the Battle of Los Angeles, I think that our government would have already contacted them, or at least attempted to.
Well, they did, but I mean, it's I don't know. I'm just trying to think about it. There are many theories, right? The Demon Warrior has joined us. So there's a lot of different theories. One is that it's not aliens at all, that it's us. It's a future version of us, that it's coming back in time in order to harvest things that are no longer available in their time. You know, things that have been lost, whether that be probably DNA, you know, species that no longer exist that they're trying to bring back. Certain races of different human beings that, you know, could be wiped out in the future. And they could be trying to, you know, to reestablish that DNA in the modern human, you know, blood pool or you know, gene pool, as it were. So, you know, who really knows? They could be historians. You know, I mean, imagine if we had the ability to travel through time and we could go back and watch and see what Columbus actually did, or you know, or witness the Battle of Hastings, or just anything like that. I think anybody, I know I'd be really fascinated just to be able to be a fly on the wall at, like, let's say the crucifixion or things like that. So, I mean, there's reasons. There's always going to be a reason. I guess that what the determining factor would be, is it plausible? Is it possible? You know, is it worth doing? You know, for anybody, right?
Well, yeah. You know, Heather, to your reasoning about aliens being demons, you know, Phil, you bring up so many good points. It's like, if a scholar looks at it, they look at it some type of structure that helps secret societies, and based on specific functions, like this demon does this demon does that, and these were based on definitions of extra humans. But now, if you say like they're tricking everybody versus you know, extraterrestrial life, there also is a lack of reporting on things like this. Valiant Thor, that wasn't his real name, but that's the name he gave. But he did tell Eisenhower that his message is about Jesus, and he said that, hey, he's on many different planets, and he actually offered to help this planet with the green situation, also curing certain diseases. But the industrial complex, the way this story goes, declined. They said, hey, they will keep it just like it is. Thanks, but no thanks. And he's supposed to be still alive, but his message of Jesus, he landed in some Virginia woods in 1960, and he visited a lot of churches. And it was funny that his main contact was a gentleman, Frank Stranges, who was a preacher himself. And then you have stories like in Italy, where people have built churches, you know, based on information they've gotten from benevolent aliens that said, hey, look, we have a bigger responsibility than you do. We understand even more than you do. There's been stories where racists have said, hey, you guys have faith in God. We know where he is. You know, there's been crazy stories, you know, so I just think it's a lack of, you know, and then if you look at the book of Enoch, the cosmos, the fourth dimension, the fourth heaven is ruled by, you know, some warrior-like angels, but they're over all the cosmos, meaning we're talking about whatever space and time you want to talk about. You know, if we want to talk about, you know, angels and demons, then we know that Samyaza was the head fallen angel. He was the leader of the chiefs of the hundreds, the tens, and the thousands. He was over Azazel, who is Satan, Hasatan. He was over Yakan. Yakan was second to him. So when they fell, you know, they had already they became demons instantly in God's eyes, as what we're talking about demons. He said, hey, look, you know, that's counterfeit. That's a probate mystery, you know. So what you have now, in our pantheon, rabbinic pantheon, if you believe in God, he became gods to people in Africa, people in what we call Babylon. Like when you have the first Talmud, not the second formation, but the first Talmud, the way they worship demons, summon them, the way the Greek still practice that, which they call the daemon, extra human. So there has been instances of where they said they even accused Jesus of using Beelzebub's power to exorcise another demon, which is why we started saying, who do they think is the strongest demon? But of course, we know that the fallen angels were using that counterfeit stuff. People didn't even know where it came from. So by the time when Jesus was talking to them, they thought they had something good when he was trying to tell them, It's right here. But back to what you're saying, there have been, if you say you think that there are other life forms around, yeah, God could encompass that. I see, because some people have a hard time with that. They think all aliens are demons.
That's true. So I do. Okay. So back to your fourth dimension. I've talked to people who believe that demons or fallen angels are fourth dimensional beings, as are most angels. And I can see that because if you're on fourth dimension, you can see the third, second, and first, or third dimension. So we can see the second and first. And I can see that. I have heard people argue that Jesus was conceived by artificial insemination, and that's how his story came about. And reading it, I can see why people would believe that. Because, yeah, the belly button, oh gosh. It was a woman and a man. It was a white woman and a black man back in the day when that wasn't done. So they were abducted, and
the hills.
Betty and Barney Hill.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I love that you guys know that offhand. I always have to Google things. But they checked her through her belly button, and it wasn't until almost a decade later that was done here.
Amniocentesis. Yeah. You're absolutely right. The amniocentesis incident that happened to Betty Hill.
It happens to most of the women when, most of the people that deal, like Dr. Jacobs or Dr. John Mack, when he's alive, rest in peace, they would 100% of the time look for fluids taken, eggs taken. I've talked to people personally that have gone through what they feel is that process. They wake up with those markings around the neck that even the doctor can't tell you what. It takes about 8 months to go away sometimes. Have a little implant, some other kind of marking. That happens, and then it's not always, sometimes it's us, Heather. My labs. You've heard of the my labs too, right? Where those my labs where the guys are following behind supposed abductions, but it's actually, people doing it,
If you think about, I'm sorry, go ahead, Heather. I've talked too much anyway.
Sorry, I've heard so many stories of people who are abducted by aliens, but they see our military in the background. Then my lab. And you're right, because that also would possibly fall back in with Operation Paperclip. The scientists were having no problem experimenting on the population. And at the time, our government didn't either. What was it, the Tuskegee experiments, where they purposely gave the Black community syphilis?
The Tuskegee experiments, yeah.
Taking kids. I've heard guys that have had generational abduction. And this is, I'm not, I can't say that I'm, some authority on that. I'm just saying they explain the fact of once it happens to them and they have the trauma and then they see it start in the next generation, they're like, that's it. I don't care if it's cute to you. You might think it's interesting and all this, but I don't think it's so interesting because what's happened or what I've been through, so I've heard that a few times.
Well, there's also the study of other species, and we continue to do it. There's TV shows about that. There's guys running through the jungle somewhere and looking for a new species. And what do? The first thing they do is capture it, look at it, document it, take a picture of it, draw blood from it, collect a sample of it, and then move on to the next one. So, it could be as simple as that. These could be scientists from other civilizations that are documenting the universe.
Exactly.
Not that, Heather.
So scientists from another universe, I get that they would want impartial information and just have a wide variety to select from. But if they are in communication with our government, they can just find volunteers. There's so many women that would happily give up their ovaries or whatever else it is to look nicer. These people are claiming they're chopped open, they're looking down, seeing kind of their guts on a table, but no scarring.
Well, that's the you make an interesting point of discussion there. It's like, does the government really know? We've had presidents, that supposedly said that first thing I'm gonna do. I think was it Bill Clinton or it might have been Obama who said it. I think even Donald Trump said he was going to do it. The first thing they're going to do is go to Area 51 and try. Now the Wolfman's here and try to find out, if there's any truth to what happened in Roswell, or do we have contact with an alien species? And I understand there is a government within the government. I think that's what the CIA was, the Allen Dulles and all that type of thing, mostly connected from after the end of World War II. But do you really? I'm not sure if I believe that there's that much like of a shadow government going on behind our government to where you could keep something that big from the administration. I would think at some point they would have to be briefed or know about it. Or think about Congress. Think about all the money that a project like that would need, and where would that money come from? To be funneled off for those type of things. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying if it is, then I've really underestimated.
We only have one public example, really, of like one that I think worth mentioning. I'm sure there's others, but that speech Kennedy gave when Eisenhower gave one too, but Kennedy gave a speech on the industrial complex, and he talked about the society that exists alongside with their own gas, money, religion, school. So who knows? There was a book I read, a fantasy series called the Blue Adept series, and had this book called the Blue Adept Juxtaposition and Out of Phase. And it was about these two planets. One was magical and one scientific. And if your one self died, you could go to the other planet. But the problem is on the science fiction planet, you had these citizens who would be like our elite or oligarch. And they could pop in and out, different dimension. They could party, they could murder, they could do whatever they wanted. And if you weren't born into that class, but the way the guy who wrote it was an ex-police officer, but he was describing like some of the things that are beyond the imagination of the normal person. We just don't have access to it. We're just not rich enough. But stories of like those redhead giants in the Ohio Valley, they would talk about how some of the senators in the 1800s would take their girlfriends to a cave, mark their name, and then show this futuristic looking sarcophagus lit up with glass and the red giants in there and something protected. Stories like that, but it's based on them being so rich that they could see stuff like that. So I don't know.
Hey, gentlemen, when I was a 97 Bravo intelligence analyst with the military intelligence U.S. Army, the reason why I went into military intelligence is because I said, if anybody knows about UFOs, it would be military intelligence. And so I was with the Photo Interpretation Center in Korea, and I had a top secret SBI clearance, which is Special Background Investigation. And it takes a while to get that clearance. And as I was at Yongsong Barracks at PICK, Photo Interpretation Center, I worked with image interpreters, and I worked with counterintelligence agents. 6 photos came in on one particular day, and those 6 photographs were from reconnaissance satellites or reconnaissance airplanes. And the 6 photos represented videos. And the 6 photos were a disc-shaped UFO, a triangle, a globe, a boomerang, a cube, and something that was egg-shaped. And the only thing I had to do was give it a number and give it to the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency. And there it went to the CIA and then to a black hole and disappeared. So military intelligence, that was in 1981, was still investigating UFOs, even though that Blue Book, Project Blue Book, closed down in 1969. But here we go. I finally had my proof that military intelligence, the U.S. Army, the Navy, everybody else, Air Force, they know something.
Wow, that's a great story, Paul. Wow.
I think the technology is an interesting topic of the different time period. You're talking about actual pictures that you actually got to see, and you wonder how much of that could be just developmental aircraft potentially that the U.S. military has under development. And I've heard that story a lot. However, where is it? Do you know what I mean? I mean, even the stealth bombers and things like that that have come out, you know, let's say from the 80s or the 90s until now, or the newest fighters, they're impressive, no doubt. But they are nothing in comparison to the leaps and bounds we made from the beginning of World War II until, let's say, the Korean War, which is a very short period of time. You really think about it. It's like you talk about 1 decade, we went from propeller aircraft to jet aircraft. And shortly, let's say 10 years after that, all of a sudden we were sending rockets into orbit and then ultimately the moon by 1969. From that point till now, it took until what? Maybe like 2010, 2015 before we had like the drone technology that we have now. You see some of these drones that you could just buy over the counter that like the Ukraine's using to great effect right now against Russia are so stable that they fly themselves. Why did it take from 1969 when we landed on the moon till now before that was readily available? You know, the computer thing, I was witness to it because I've worked in the field from the 1990s until now, and it was amazing, no doubt. But it's still nothing compared to 1903. We flew, the Wright brothers flew for like what 100 feet, you know, in basically a kite with a small underpowered motor. So we landed on the moon and returned from there in 1969. It's been longer from 69 till now than it was from 1903 to 1969, and we haven't done anything, in my opinion, nearly as impressive since then.
Hey, Phil, it's funny that you were saying about the drones because my next door neighbor, Gregory James, he's a head of a company that deals with drones. They do all that fancy stuff where it goes all about, 200 go up in the air and they do light shows and all that. So, yeah. And he also, too, he gets government contracts. So that's kind of interesting.
They're impressive. A friend of mine who passed away, his wife gave me his drone after we completed our last documentary together. And this was maybe a $4,000 drone when it was brand new. And it does about 45 miles an hour. It will follow you. It can go up to, over a mile distance away from me. It can shoot up 400 feet, although you're technically not supposed to go legally over 100 feet. It's so fast and maneuverable that, like, if a helicopter was flying overhead, I have no doubt that if I wanted to, I could ram that thing right into the helicopter with no problem at all. And that's something that's available to anybody who's got a credit card. You know,
and what's the difference between a motorized model airplane and a drone?
Stability. Huge amount of stability with a drone and maneuverability. Like a model aircraft, it basically operates like an aircraft. You need a runway to land it, to take off. You're limited in your maneuverability. You can't stop it dead in its place. A drone honestly moves and operates like a UFO. It is the closest thing we have on this planet to in its movement that replicates what a UFO can do. You can stop dead in your tracks with it. You can go up, down, sideways. It's more maneuverable than a helicopter. It's 10 times more stable than a helicopter, and they can fly themselves. So if you wanted to fake a UFO, these days the drone would be the obvious choice. That is an impressive leap in technology. However, I still don't know if it's. I'm expecting more. You know what I mean? It's in less than 60 years, we went from a kite to the moon, and now in the past 60 years, or more, we have drones. We've got the internet. I mean, it's interesting. We've got cell phones, so I guess technically it's like Star Trek a little bit. We all got tricorders in our pocket and things like that. But everybody talks about how fast technology moves and how it continues to move faster. And I really think that's kind of blown out of proportion, because I don't think, for example, the F-16 is still probably the most heavily used aircraft in our forces right now, right? That's a 50-year-old aircraft. That aircraft is as older than I am, and it's still in use and still like the number one thing out there. And supposedly the reason is that they're not replacing them all is cost. because the new ones are like, $30 billion per aircraft kind of thing. I don't know. To me, it doesn't seem like they should be that expensive. A lot of padded money into that cost.
For 6 months, Halo Paranormal Investigations had a drone because one of our paranormal investigators was a drone operator, and it was really nice, especially when you're investigating a farm, and they get that sky view, and they get the whole lay of the land. That was nice. And then they moved out of state, and that was end of our drone.
It's interesting to have the problem you have, or I have had with mine, is that you cannot operate one legally within 5 miles of an airport. And if you look around, almost everywhere you go, you're close to 5 miles to some type of small little rinky-dink airport. Even here at the beach, I've got a little Cessna type, they call it the executive airport, less than 5 miles away from me. So I'm not supposed to operate, or I accept the risks, and I only operate within 100 feet. There are rules to using it. The other thing is that I live in a redneck state, and so if you fly it anywhere near somebody's house, they literally try to shoot them down on you. So it's and that's quite a thing to lose, because Grandpa heard something buzzing over his house.
Heather, what do you think about that? Like, what Phil brings up a good point, to where the technology, who knows how new or old it is. So like in Las Vegas, how they have those things pop out, like it's coming out of dimension, or it comes out the side of the building, that type of stuff. How long did they have that before some of these sightings? And also, when, it's just that they could, anything could have been faked a long time ago. We don't know how long they've been having stuff. But also Jack Parsons, who's with the military, he was doing sex magic rituals and making sacrifices, and the government checked out his experiments, so they were aware of dark entities and energies, supposedly for real. But then, like I said, the stuff that they have nowadays at Vegas and up there, if they've been able to do that for 30 or 40 years, Phil, like you said, depends on the technology, that's scary, because we don't know if anything we've seen is what we thought it was.
Well, they're definitely not releasing a lot of technology. I gotta agree with that, because the toys now suck compared to what was going on in the 80s and 90s. Not just that, like computers, yes, they're in our hand now, but there's no reason for nothing new to be coming out. Even TVs, they just add a large tablet to it. Ooh, it's new. The planned obsolescence on it's also insane now. But I want to bounce back to where you were talking about shadow governments and where they would get the funding. Rumsfeld, back in the day, announced that there were $2 trillion missing, and I do believe that every once in a while they do announce that there are supplies missing. Oops, gone. I do think that I don't want to say a shadow government. I want to say a branch that we're not supposed to pay attention to, that takes things like your photos, Mr. Robert, and handles things that we're probably not able to handle. Not just as the general population. I'm sure individually someone could understand what's going on, but people panic, and we're already facing global population collapse, and that could be deliberate. That might not be. I could see China going down noticeably in the next 50 years. They purposely stopped female birth, and now we're seeing it here in California. Not just people moving out, but there's no babies. Very few anywhere. You can look it up.
And yet we're building more and more houses left and right, and there's supposedly a housing crisis, not enough homes for people. That's it seems contradictory information. I know exactly what you're saying. Italy, I think more than 10 years ago, announced a declining birth rate. Japan has the past 20 years or more has been saying the same thing. And yet, if you look at the development of of areas throughout the country, pick a state basically, and they're tearing down woods, putting up new houses, and they still don't have enough to supply demand for housing. And yet, like you said, supposedly We have a declining birth rate, and yet we need to build a wall and stop people from coming over because there's too many people in this country. That seems like contradictory information, and I'm not sure who to put it, to be honest.
Hey, did you guys see when Joe Rogan was interviewing Trump, and he asked him all those UFO questions?
I saw a little bit. I missed the UFO part of it.
Yeah. Did you see it, Zandy?
Hey, Paul.
Did you see it when Trump was being questioned by Joe Rogan, and he was asking him all those UFO questions?
No, do you remember any of them? Any ones that stuck out in your mind?
Yeah. Basically what it was getting down to is, what are UFOs? Do UFOs exist? Does military acknowledge it? Blah, blah, blah. And Trump says, yeah, some people have seen some really strange things. I mean, he's very vague. It's like, like Bill Clinton really wanted to know about UFOs, and he wasn't vague about it. But Trump is very vague about it.
Yeah.
I feel like that goes back to the secondary shadow government idea that they're handling something we don't understand and weren't going to be able to handle. They just passed that they get to keep us alive. I don't remember what the bill was. They get to shoot American citizens, basically. I'll double check that and send it to you later. We're just freaking about it. And it was very strange that riot control is going to possibly be people now, right before an election. People are focusing on the election part. But I think that the Art Bell program, where a man in the military rang up and said, there's bad things coming, and they can move people. They're choosing not to. So,
can you tell me?
I think there are certain presidents that knew about UFOs. And like, definitely Eisenhower knew about UFOs. Truman knew about UFOs. I believe Nixon knew about UFOs because he took Jackie Gleason over to that military facility to see
body.
Dead alien body. Yeah. So, and certain presidents are not privy to UFOs. Obama, they don't tell him anything. Clinton, they didn't tell him anything. Kennedy may have known. And maybe part of the assassination was because he knew something about UFOs, and Marilyn Monroe was writing it in her red diary. So
I'd like to know
interesting.
I'd like to know more about what Heather was saying, because most people know that we're technically not allowed to deploy American troops within the United States. The CIA is not allowed to operate within the United States. That's what the National Guard is for. When we haven't really seen that used to shoot people since the 60s, when Kent State, things like that happened. So could you expand on that a little bit, Heather?
Yeah, 1 sec. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I sent it to a friend not that long ago.
I like your shirt, Phil.
Thanks. That's my cowboy alien.
I bet you Zandine wants that shirt.
I do.
Hey, the Demon Warrior was getting upset because he thought the Paranormal Soul brother wanted to be the Demon Warrior and wear that mask.
No, I was just saying it was Paranormal Soul Roberts.
Oh, okay. Oh my God. Zandine, have you ever wore a mask for Halloween?
Frankenstein and some robot masks. Well, I used to, when I was a kid, I liked the little electric mask where you could, take the little button, it lights it up and stuff. Or I'd take a Frankenstein mask that had the little electrodes and light up.
Okay. About you, Phil? Have you ever worn a mask?
You remember those cheap plastic ones they had in the 70s with the string tie? I was keeping around the back. Yeah. I went as Donnie from Donnie and Marie when I was like 5.
Great smile.
Hey, they even have now a P. Diddy mask.
That's terrifying.
I don't imagine that is a hot seller.
Oh yeah, it is. It's a hot seller. Yeah.
Does
Oh,
it come
and
with
of
a
course
why?
of course they have Trump.
Now
The
let me
Trump
stop. Can you
mask.
do it? Now let's not. We got a lady on the line here. We ain't gonna go crazy like that.
Oh my goodness.
Well, that goes back to our conversation about a government within a government, or some people having privileged access to information that other people wouldn't have. And ultimately, you think that people that the most power can get away with anything, but we've learned from like Epstein or who is that movie producer that's Weinstein. Weinstein, and they're not the only ones now. P. Diddy, that ultimately it doesn't matter how big or powerful or rich you are, you're going to go down. And then money wise, I always thought like somebody like Steve Jobs with all his money, that if there were a cure for cancer, that certainly that guy would have been privy to it. But no, cancer took him. So ultimately, I think money and influence and power can only do so much for you on this planet.
And it always scares me with anybody with the last name Steen. Epstein, Weinstein, Frankenstein.
And somebody named P. Diddy, they actually said that the person that gave him that name did that as a clown, like that Notorious Big named him that as a clown move, knowing that later on it would sound stupid. He actually gave him that name, but he told him, "Oh yeah, P. Diddy, that'll be smashed, that'll be cool, man, P. Diddy." He said that he really didn't mean that. He thought that was a stupid name. And now look at it. But the devil, give you something to take it back, or whoever those people are, they'll give it and recoup it. That's a good business, man. I mean, you give somebody, make them pay for their fame, and they don't even last long enough. Look, the guys got Grammys, got everything. They got charged for murder, and it's sticking.
Hey, P. Diddy's mansions are going to be haunted. When everybody's out of those mansions, they're going to hear some creepy noises and all that other stuff, because all that negative energy from all that debauchery of all the sexual escapades that were happening there, and where women were being forced to do this, or young minors or young boys or whatever were doing this and doing that, all that negative energy is going to be residual. And people are going to see things, they're going to hear things, because of all the terrible things that happen at those mansions.
Do you remember the Black Larry King? Not the Jewish Larry King, the Black Larry King. Does that name sound familiar? Okay. Yeah. Do you remember the scandal that took place with him with Boys Town in the 80s?
What kind? No. I do. Okay. Yeah, somebody went left station or something.
Yeah, but well, Larry, it was a different Larry King. He was African American, and he was a very successful banker in middle America. I forget which state, and he was somehow involved with the one of the political parties. I'm not going to say which one because I'm not 100% sure of it, but they supposedly were having sex parties with young boys from Boys Town, the famous orphanage. And that was a huge scandal in the 80s, like way before now what's going on. So this isn't anything new. The names have changed, the players have changed, but this definitely is nothing new. And we know how long the Catholic Church has been going on with this kind of crazy stuff.
And Phil, have you ever heard of Fatty Arbuckle?
Oh yeah, the rape case with Fatty Arbuckle.
I mean, here you got this lavish party that Fatty held over at the hotel in San Francisco, and he had this thing for this one actress, and he got her into the bedroom, and he took a chunk of ice and he placed it into her private area forcefully, which killed her. And then he came out, he was dancing. Fatty Arbuckle was fat, but he came out dancing and he was all happy and everything. But he just killed a woman. He was actually found not guilty, but everybody knows he was guilty of sin, and his money got him out of it. but his career went downhill from there.
In California, people have been getting away with murder for a long time.
Yeah.
Heather, have you got something on that? I think you've been looking at the camera.
I'm trying to find it. I know I sent it to my friend, then I tried Googling it, so I'm going to try DuckDuckGo. It's not popping up. I don't want to have to search bitch.
We don't have to. We can move on to anything else. We're getting close to the hour mark. Is there, you got any other questions, Paul, or anything about this story that we haven't talked about yet?
Wolfman Roberts and the Demon Warrior want to thank you for having them on the show, and they wish they could have talked some more, but apparently,
yeah, the Demon Warrior is pretty silent.
Yeah, they were kind of quiet. They were kind of quiet. Yeah. But Heather, I want to thank you for being on the show. You're a paranormal experiencer and a paranormal investigator. And your last name's Cornwall?
It could go either way.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Huh, interesting. So anyway, yeah, thank you for being on the show. It was very interesting talking to you, and I wish the investigation at your home would have got on national TV, but oh well.
I'm gonna try and look that up and send it to you, Mr. Roberts. Maybe you can send it to Phil. Yes, that's gonna drive me nuts. I can't find it immediately. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Guys, next time, Heather, I know you've been seeing some stuff. Let's talk. But I know so much serious stuff going on right now. We don't really have, it's like so much happening right now, terrestrial wise, and our extraterrestrial is not on everybody's mind so much.
Well, we're always interested in it. So anytime you want to talk about it.
Heather, when this show is all completed, I'll send you the link. And it also, too, is registered with IMDb.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. I cut Phil off. Phil, I'm sorry.
Oh, on another note, our last episode, we talked about that talking mongoose from England.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, that movie is now on Amazon for free, if you guys want to check it out. I tried watching it. I'm going to have to give it another try. It was late, and I kind of dozed off.
What's the name of the movie?
So much done about it. Today I was talking about the talking mongoose, but I didn't know his name.
It's
Jeff.
Mongoose movie on Amazon.
Jeff.
My son was gaming, but when I said talking mongoose, he stopped.
Yeah, it's called Nandor Fodor and the Talking Mongoose.
Okay.
Oh.
Nandor.
I have to look that up.
Nandorfodor and the Talking Mongoose.
Something, they have really, I mean, with all the TV stations that you got so many good shows on. Now I heard that Lulu is going to have the case about the Brooklyn abduction, where that woman was taken out from a 23rd floor window. And she was floating in the air. The UFO was taking her away. A government official with his bodyguards actually witnessed it on the Brooklyn Bridge. 23 witnesses, 23 of this woman floating out of her window and going into a UFO.
You know what? She also, the thing is, they had that blue light that takes everybody through certain physical things, like takes them through windows. The next door neighbor, said that she saw her with her nightgown, everything going through the window. She said she thought it was a Steven Spielberg movie at first. It was so marvelous. She thought that they were filming a Steven Spielberg movie. It took her a minute to realize what she was looking at. Yeah, Paul. And then they CIA agents, people there was a motorcade. Yeah, a lot of people saw this. That was one of the I read that case and I've been fascinated ever since. Haven't heard much, but until you just said that. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, they actually made a movie about it. So, yeah, it's going to be featured on Lulu. The lady that it happened to, she's trying to stop it because there was some parts in there where they were kind of making fun of her. But I actually believe her. I mean, Bud Hawkins actually interviewed her put her in regressive hypnosis.
Yeah.
She recalled the whole thing. And how can you dispute 23 witnesses, one of them being an official government official?
This is Manhattan. It's Manhattan, man. Trained observers. What'd you say, Phil?
This is if anybody here is a true crime documentary fan, there's one on Netflix right now called Into the Fire, The Missing Daughter. It's excellent. Probably one of the best true crime documentaries I've seen in years.
Check that one out. I think I saw some on that. Yeah.
Do you guys ever watch ID Discovery's Fear Thy Neighbor?
All that.
I think I've seen it. I've seen parts of it.
Boy, the stories on there are crazy. Oh my God.
Yeah. Hey, Phil, the one you're talking about, I think did it already aired, right?
Yeah, it already aired. I believe it's still on. I
think I saw a little bit of that.
It's an amazing story because it's basically starts off with a woman who gave her daughter up for adoption, and she gets basically turned her life around. Was very young when she had her, and her mother encouraged her to give her up for adoption to have a better life. And then she got contacted by the police, like 25, 30 years later, asking for DNA because they found a body that they think might be her daughter, and they want to try to identify her. It turns out not to be her daughter, but her daughter had been missing since the 1980s, and she then made it her mission to try to find her. And I don't want to ruin the rest of it for you because it's pretty mind-blowing and horrific too, as far as the story goes. Like I said, I don't want to ruin it, but if you like,
what's the name of this movie?
It's called Into the Fire: The Missing Daughter.
Into the Fire.
Or The Lost Daughter, something to that effect. It's on Netflix.
Netflix, okay. Okay, so you got Jeff the Talking Mongoose, you got the Brooklyn UFO abduction, and Into the Fire Netflix. Man, there's too much to watch. And not only that, you got Agatha all day long or something like that. I don't know if you guys have been watching that one.
No, I haven't.
What?
But all right, well, thank you, Heather. Sorry, we ended up talking about a lot of other things besides.
And I know I sent it to somebody, and I'm trying to Google it, and it's a number. So I have so many of the bills I've looked up that it's just all convoluted. I will send that to you as soon as I find it.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Heather.
Have a great day. Bye, everybody.